that we study the self, that we know what's going on inside here so that we can then reach out to other people, to be aware of our own thinking and our own habits and our own behaviors, where those might come from, so that we can extend more easily to others. So that's why we're going to talk about self-concept, self-esteem, self-disclosure, and a little bit of self-awareness. So we're going to begin with your self-concept and where it comes from. So if it were possible, I'd like you to write down 3 things that describe yourself physically. Those aren't necessarily the words that you would use if you were listed on some sort of police scanner. This is more of the things that you think about when you think of yourself physically. For me, I wrote brunette because I've always been super happy that I've been a brunette, because Wonder Woman was a brunette and she's awesome, and The Prettiest Charlie's Angels was a brunette, so I've been happy about that, and I've never tried to give myself highlights or be blonde in any way. I also hate my freckles, like hate. When I was younger, I wouldn't look people in the eyes because they would see that I had freckles, and so instead, I would just look down. I've always hated them. I still hate them. So those are 2 of the words that I would use to describe me physically. Once you do your outsides, it's time to do your insides, things that would describe your character. Some of the examples here: are you funny? Are you thoughtful, hardworking, loyal, kind, generous? You need to think about 3 words that would describe your insides. We also have 3 things that you do well. So when I put effort into it, then I can do public speaking. Also, I taught driver's ed for 3 years, so when I choose to, again, these are when I choose to, I can drive well within the law. I know the laws, and I can be a good driver. And this last one is a picture. I'm really good at ideas. I have all of these ideas about the big picture. I'm a visionary about all these wonderful things that my life could look like, or projects that we could do, or even sometimes lessons that we might have. So if I know the things that I do well, I also need to know the 3 things that you don't do well. I have no spatial awareness at all, so I can't do puzzles. I wouldn't be able to find those 3 pieces. You know how I said I have big ideas? The problem is I can't ever put them into action to create anything that's actually lovely. So it's difficult for me to actually put my fingers together and create something. So I know what I do well, I know what I don't do well, and I want you to try to think of at least 1 thing that you care about passionately. As it says here, these aren't your hobbies. It should be things that you would be willing to debate because you get so intense about them. You have so many views. You have people that you want to educate about this topic. Some examples would be like global warming or any side of politics. Now, if you are religious, that's where this would go in. This is something that you believe in, if religion is relevant in your life. So hopefully you can at least come up with 1 thing, but some of you might have a lot more than that. Next, this is the different roles that you play, or the hats that you wear is what some people call them. So some of you are going to have more roles that you play in life, but at least list the ones that you have. So for me, I play the role of a teacher. This is one of my favorite roles, of course. I try to be a good mom, but there's a lot of pressure there. I am a homeowner, and I love working out in the yard. It's important to me that when the neighbors drive by, they're like, "Oh, there's the nicest looking yard in the house, in the neighborhood. Woohoo!" It's also important that I am a daughter. Because my parents are aging, I have a lot more decisions that I have to make, a lot more responsibilities, and so that actually is a very big role that I'm playing right now, is that of daughter. At times I've been a student, and that's important to me. And finally, I love being an aunt. So you notice that I don't have sibling up here, because at this point in my life, it's actually more important for me to be a good aunt than a good sibling. I feel like, all right, the siblings, my brothers have passed. Now let's focus on the younger generation. I did put cousin up here because honestly, I don't even know my cousins' names, and so they don't really play a big, important role in my life. If you have a job that's just a place where you go, you collect a paycheck, and you go home, you might not be writing this down. However, if you have a job that means something to you and you want to do it well, and it's kind of a little bit of how you identify yourself, then you would put your job up there. Hopefully you guys would put student because it's something that you've chosen to do and not just something that you've been forced into. So you're going to have a different amount of roles. Now when you look at this list, what do you think? Do you think this is a pretty good list? Got a little bit of this and a little bit of that? Or do you think, what? I couldn't even come up with 3 things that I do well? Look how many blanks I left. What does that mean that you have all these blanks in this short little activity? Do you wish that your list looked like somebody else? So if it were possible, what you have before you would be your self-concept on paper. When I asked you what you thought about it, that would be your self-esteem. So let's talk about that a little bit. So when we look at the self-concept, the definition that you need to know, the self-concept is how you perceive yourself. A couple of things. First of all, you. How you perceive yourself. That is so important. If you went to your mom or you went to someone that you're in love with or someone that's known you since you were kindergarten age and you said, hey person, write down the 3 things that I do well. Hey person, write down 3 things that describe me physically. Hey, write down the things that I'm most passionate about. Even your mom, who has known you your whole life, would have a different list than what you created. Your mom might say, no honey, you're good at art. Remember in the 3rd grade how you won that competition? Or she might say the things that you aren't doing well are you're a slob, you're not motivated, you're not driven, things like that. So you would see it differently. It doesn't matter what your mom thinks. It doesn't matter what your boyfriend thinks in this instance. This is about how you perceive yourself. So in this example, we all see Homer for what he is, but it doesn't matter what we think. It's how he perceives himself, and he sees himself as some sort of fantastic dude. How you perceive yourself is what makes your self-concept. So then it goes on. So you're continuing and writing your definition. It's how you perceive yourself, and it goes on to say your strengths and your abilities. And I told you about my strengths and my abilities. And then it continues, and it says your weaknesses and your limitations. So as you can see, you need to have a balance of both. If you are someone who can only see your weaknesses and your limitations, then there's a feeling of hopelessness. Why would you enroll in college? You didn't even do well in high school. Why would you ask that person out? There are so many people that are better looking. Why would I apply for that job? There are people that are more talented. So if you only see these things, you don't try for anything new because you don't think that you could possibly get it. On the other hand, if you have someone that only sees their strengths and abilities, then they become prideful, and the prideful will fall. It sometimes happens with athletes or with movie stars or musicians that think they've got it all. They know everything, that nothing could ever happen to them. It even happened to Martha Stewart, who a few years ago was on top of the world. She could bake, she had her magazine, she could sew, she was pretty famous. She had a lot of money, so much money that she put a little bit in the stock market. Who's gonna know if somebody gives her some inside information? She didn't really think that she could get caught or that the rules applied to her because she only saw her strengths and her abilities, and eventually she did get caught and she was put in prison. Now she has come back after that, but you can't just see your abilities or you will fall. So a healthy self-concept has a balance of both of those. Now, if that is what your self-concept is, now the definition of self-esteem is how you feel, okay? How you feel about yourself. So your concept is what you wrote down, and your self-esteem is how you felt about it. Would you be willing to share your list out loud with everybody in the class and say, yep, this is me? Then you would have pretty high self-esteem. You feel good about it. I don't care who knows that I think of myself this way. And if you would be more comfortable sharing it with just a small group, then that shows you where you are in your self-esteem, and if you don't want to share it with anybody. So in this photo, these are American swimmers from the Australian Olympics. And there was so much excitement before the Olympic Games that these guys were the best that had ever been. And like this is Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte, I think is his name. And they went to the Olympics, and look, what color are their medals? They're silver. So they got second place. Look at these guys. The rest of us, if we even attended the Olympics as a spectator, would be thrilled, let alone be in it. And yet these guys who got second place feel like complete failures. So much shame because there was such a higher expectation for them. So it doesn't matter what the rest of us think. Hey, you should be happy you got second place in the Olympics, the best in the world. Doesn't matter what we think, it's how they feel. So you can't say to somebody, she has it all, she's smart and she's rich and she's educated and she's beautiful. It doesn't matter what we think because she might feel like her sister's prettier and her neighbor has better grades than she does. Okay, so this is all within. Just so you know, Michael Phelps, after this shame and this failure, went back to win like a zillion gold medals in that same Olympics. All right, so self-concept is how you perceive yourself. Self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. So we need to talk about where this whole self-concept comes from. You are not born with a self-concept, but it doesn't take long to figure it out. When a baby starts crying, big people come, whether they need to have their pants changed or get fed or be picked up. And the baby realizes, wait, when I cry, things happen. I have power in this world. And then it comes also with smiling. When a baby smiles, it doesn't take them long to figure out that then people do this and they play with them. Even in the grocery store, they learn that what I do matters. So that's their first awareness. Then they find out that they have bodies, and that's super cool. If you've ever seen a baby find their tongue, and they play with their tongue and they can blow bubbles, they look at their hand, they shove their hand in their mouth because guess what? They can. This is my hand and my mouth, and I want to put it in there. So they're starting to think, not only do I have a little bit of power in this world, but I'm here and I am somebody. So we're going to pick up from there where else your self-concept comes from. This is the development of your self-concept. Now, the first place that it comes from is others' images of you. Okay, that's the first place, and there will be 4. First place, others' images of you. So with this, you look to your significant others and the way they treat you and the way they react to you, and you believe it. So there's your definition. A significant other is someone whose opinions matter most. And you look to the way they treat you and the way they react to you, and you believe it. So one of the first significant others in your life would be your parents. That when your parents tell you that you're so beautiful or that you're so strong and that that's my little man or you're my little princess. Yes, I am. I am a princess. On the other hand, when a parent says, why can't you get this right? Why do you keep bothering me? How come you can't be more like this? Then you believe it. That you're not good enough. That you do keep messing up. That you do make things so much harder. You believe it. So after your parents within the home come the siblings. Now, I don't think siblings understand how much power they really have. Your opinion matters. If you are the oldest, I guarantee your opinion matters. Your younger siblings might not even treat you well. They might be disrespectful. They might act like they don't care what you think. But I guarantee that they do. Especially if you have younger teenage brothers and sisters, what you say is so important. You can say one critical thing and they will cling to it. On the other hand, if you say something fantastic, they will remember it forever. I still care a lot about what my siblings think. I do have a big role in taking care of my parents because I'm the one that's living here and the youngest and the only girl. So when my brother says something like, hey, thanks Tanya, thanks sis, you did that really well, I'm like, oh, really? You think I did it all right? Because it's still important to me. So siblings thinking, oh, I'm just toughing them up for the world, you don't need to do that. The world is tough enough. You need to be a significant other because your opinion matters and they will believe what you say. So we have your parents, we have your siblings, and it moves on. So these are your peers, and I'm going to say that there's a difference between your peers and your friends. Your peers are the ones that, through a seating chart in your junior high, they have to sit next to you. Your schedule says that they're going to be in the same class. So in this example, these peers, everybody has a different clique, everybody has a different group, and yet what they think matters comes from who they think is significant. So who is significant in high school? You think the popular people? Well, what makes somebody popular in high school? So you might think, well, the athlete is the popular one. So because they can run fast or because they have, they can catch a football, that, yep, their opinion should matter. This one, the princess. So because their parents have money and they dress with expensive clothing or drive an expensive car. So because their parents are rich, their opinion should matter. So that when you are sitting in English class and your mom gave you, or your girlfriend or somebody gave you a new shirt or pants, and you're like, okay. But when the guy in English says, nice pants, and laughs, who are you going to believe? The people that love you or these significant others, these people whose opinions? And that's why it's so hard in high school and why so many people's self-esteem plummets, because they only see their weaknesses, because they put too much power in those people who haven't earned it. These significant others, just because they're tough or because they're rich, their opinions should matter. And that's why we get so confused. And so it's important that we know who deserves to be a significant other in our lives. Which leads us to friends. Hopefully, you do pick out friends that deserve it, that deserve your putting them in a place of honor. Make sure that you know the difference between a friend and somebody that you hang out with for funsies. A friend is somebody that you can talk to. You don't have to be doing something fun and exciting. You don't have to be drinking. You don't have to have a whole bunch of people around you. You can just be yourself. Sit and talk with a friend. On the other hand, someone that you hang out with and have fun with, sometimes they can be significant, but do they deserve that honor? If they're only there for the fun, then I can guarantee that if somebody else fun comes along, or somebody else better looking, or somebody else has a better plan, that they will be off with them. So be careful that you know what the difference is between a friend and somebody that you just spend time with. And make sure that your friend is your significant other, the one that deserves that praise. Also, you have your boss. Now, you don't have to necessarily like your significant other. You do not have to respect your significant other. So with your boss, you can know that they are horrible at their job. You would do such a better job doing working that place in the company. You might know that they have no ethics or integrity, and yet their opinions matter. Their opinions matter because they set the schedule. Their opinions matter because they tell you what you have to do that day and can give you icky assignments. Their opinion matters because you get time off and you get promotions. Their opinions matter. So be careful that when you go to your job and every day you have a boss that's telling you that your work isn't good enough, that somebody else is better, why can't you get this, dummy? That has an effect on us. Now, along in this category would go coaches, those of you who have been on sports teams or any sort of competitive group. Some coaches take that role and they think that if they push you down, that then that'll make you want to fight and get back up. Maybe that worked for you. Also, the military, people that you would have in that situation, what they tell you matters. If they are significant, if you don't care what their opinion is, maybe they're your equal, then that's not going to affect your self-concept as much as someone else who has power to influence your life. And after this is your romantic partners. They have even more power than any other, because not only does their opinion matters, you've given them your heart. You've been vulnerable and you want to trust them. And so when a significant other tells you that you're beautiful and that you're smart and that you're capable, you want to believe it, right? And when a significant other tells you that you're not good enough, that you're not skinny enough, you don't make enough money, that there are other people who could treat you better, they believe that as well. Significant others, when they are your romantic partner, you have to be very, very careful, because when they tell you you're nothing, remember, they'll believe it. The way they treat you and react to you, they believe it. So when they treat you like you're worth nothing, you believe it. You're right. You're right. I couldn't do any better. You're right. I should have been ready. You're right. I don't even have a good job. You're right. I have gained 5 pounds. Whatever the situation might be, you have to be very careful in these relationships. So those are your significant others, and you believe the way they treat you. And that's why we have a picture of a little sponge. It's like you soak up what is around you. So that's number 1, development of your self-concept. Others' images of you. Number 2 are your cultural teachings. And as we've discussed before, culture is really kind of encompasses everything. So it's big, like from country to country. Yep, those are different cultures. Different areas, the Northeast versus the Southwest, the Pacific North versus what do you call the middle part of our country? Midwest. Different cities. The difference between Gilbert and Scottsdale. The difference between Apache Junction and Paradise Valley. Even in your neighborhoods. Your neighborhood might have a fancy gate and somebody else's neighborhood has a fountain. Well, my neighborhood has this name. And so we can kind of establish a climate almost for what your neighborhood is like. And then finally, there's a culture even within your home. That you can be the same person living in the same apartment, but if you have one roommate, your existence, your culture will be established, and then if you get a new roommate, you will have a completely different culture based on their behaviors, based on their language, based on their manners of interacting, based on that other person's values, based on the roles that you play. So remember that when we talk about culture, we're talking big and small. It's everywhere, okay? So the number 2 part of the development of your self-concept is cultural teachings. Now, with cultural teachings, the first one we're going to talk about is your definition of success. What is successful to you? So there are people in this class that when they get an 88%, that's a failure. Maybe they have a dental hygiene or nursing program and they have to have a 4.0 to even be admitted. Maybe they are on some sort of a scholarship and they need to make sure that they have a high enough grade to keep that tuition funding coming in. So an 88%, that's not good enough. And there are others in this room that an 88% is like a victory because C's get degrees. And so an 88%, sweet, maybe my parents will take me out for ice cream. It's the same 88%, but it's how your culture defines it. So with your culture, if you are in the culture of computer science, then there's going to be a different expectation than if you're in the culture of art or something like that. Not that one is superior to the other. I'm just saying they're different cultures. So it can be what you're majoring in. It can be your family and the expectation of grades. In your family, was it expected that you get A's and B's, or was it expected that, hey, you're passing? I'm happy about that for right now. So your family can set that expectation as well. So not only could it work with grades, but it can also work with your education. There are people in this classroom that are thrilled to be at Mesa Community College. Maybe they have earned every penny of tuition themselves. Maybe they went away from school for a time and now they're back as an older student who is committed to make a life change. Perhaps you're a first-generation college student. No one in your family has ever graduated from college, and yet you're here. You have made it. And so congratulations to you. You are being successful right now by being a college student. There are also those of you in this class who feel like you are a failure because you are at Mesa Community College. Here's the difference. So you see friends from high school and you're like, oh, what are you up to? I'm just at MCC. I'm just at MCC. Like, it's not good enough. Now, maybe it's not good enough because when you were in high school, you thought you would be at a different university. Maybe it's not good enough because you have siblings or cousins that are at such prestigious schools, or maybe they have full ride scholarships or lots of things going on and you're just at MCC. So it's how your culture defines it, right? How everybody around you defines it. If you're successful at MCC or if everybody else is doing better. So if you feel like everybody else is doing better, then that's going to affect your self-concept, and it's going to make it a little bit lower than those of you who are proud to be here. Okay? So that's one of the cultural teachings. Next, we have the relevance of religion. So we're going to have the relevance of religion, race, and nationality. So when we're talking about relevance, what that means is how important is it? So if we're talking about religion, how important is it? If you consider yourself a Christian and you go to church on Easter and Christmas and you're like, yeah, nice, I did it, then religion probably isn't very important to you. If you are, however, someone who wants to attend all of your meetings weekly or wherever they meet, then it's probably more important, and if it is relevant, then it can have an influence on your self-concept. For example, most religions have lists. They have lists of things that you should be doing if you are a good follower, and they have lists of things that you definitely should not be doing. So if religion is important to you, it can affect your self-concept because you should have done that. You should be volunteering more. You should have reached out. You should have taken care of that. You should have. So much should haves. And then the don'ts. You keep screwing up. You can't get it right. You're tempted by so much. And so you're wondering, am I ever going to be good enough? Am I ever going to be who I want to be? And most religions have some belief of life after death. And so you're thinking, am I ever going to make it to heaven? Am I going to go to hell? Because I just can't do it. So sometimes people where religion is relevant, it can affect their self-concept, their self-esteem, because they're just not good enough. Now, there's a flip side of the relevance of religion. Oftentimes, those people where religion is relevant, they also have a boost to their self-concept and their self-esteem because they believe that they are here for a purpose. Most religious people believe in a higher being, whether it's Allah or God or Buddha or Hindu gods. There's somebody, there's something. The ancestors, somebody that is looking out for you, that cares about you, that there's a purpose for you here on this earth, that you have something that is unique to you to reach out and to help. Those that pray, you are connected to such a powerful being, whether you believe that you're a child of God or somebody that is special to parents that angels are watching over. It does something to help you know that you are of worth, that there is something to this life more than just birth and death. So, people where religion is relevant, it can be difficult and push you down if you feel like you're never going to be good enough, but it can also boost you up because it gives you a greater sense of worth. So, I mentioned the relevance of religion. Now, it's also the relevance of race. Now, when you look at your list that you made of your self-concepts, the outsides, your insides, your talents. So when you look at that, did you write down your skin color? Was that one of the 3 things that are most relevant when you consider how you look? And if you did write down your skin color, did you write down like an ethnicity, like Asian? Because that's not how you really describe yourself. Are you brown? Are you chocolate? Are you tan? Generally speaking, students that write white, it's not about, I'm Caucasian. It's about being teased for being too white, too porcelain, so that they burn so easily or freckle so easily, or when you wear shorts, people laugh because, oh, your legs are so white. And that they've been teased for that. Some people write light-skinned because maybe they are of mixed race and one side of the family always thinks that you're too light and the other side of the family thinks that you're too dark. If you didn't write down your skin color, then that means the relevance of race might not be that important in your life. If you wrote tall, maybe being tall and being expected to be a basketball player, or being tall and a woman, you might think that you always felt like you needed to shrink, you hated being taller than all of the guys, things like that. That might have actually had more to do with how you felt about yourself than the color of your skin. It kind of depends on where you grew up, how you felt, what your family told you about your role in the community. Because sometimes your culture says you need to stand up, you need to represent, you need to be an example, you need to educate the ignorant, and it's a big deal. And to others, it just isn't, because it just feels more comfortable and not so much something that you want to point out. It's not bad or good one way or the other. It just affects your self-concept, if that makes sense. So the relevance of it, if it's not relevant to you, then it's not going to affect your self-concept much. Now, if it is relevant, then how you act is going to be important to you. If you feel like you want to demonstrate what, let's say, a proud black man would behave like, then if you are behaving well and if you are being a good example and reaching out to people and educating others, then that's going to feel good. But if you feel like you aren't, that there are other things that you should be doing, that you aren't representing your family or the things that you believe in, then that might make you feel not as important. Okay? So the relevance of religion, race, and the third one is nationality. So to some people, nationality is very important. But here in America, because we do tend to be so ethnocentric, we think that anybody that's below the United States is Mexican. They're all brown and they're all Mexican. But there's so much more than that. It's hard for us to acknowledge a Guatemalan from a Bolivian, from someone who's from Colombia and El Salvador. Sometimes the Hispanic. And we don't take the time to classify the nation. If you ask a Puerto Rican if they're Mexican or a Mexican if they're Puerto Rican, oftentimes, oh, no. It's important that they want to say, this is where I'm from and this is what I'm about. People that are Irish, for example, they have so many t-shirts and belt buckles and kiss me, I'm Irish. The Irish have so much pride. And very rarely do you see a t-shirt that says, kiss me, I'm from Norway. There's just a difference in the passion, the relevance of the nationality. How passionate are you? If you were traveling in Europe and somebody asked you if you were Canadian, would you be all, no, I'm American? Or would you be like, sure, yeah, I'm Canadian? That's how important it is to you. My mother-in-law is from Finland. She was born and raised there until she was 18. And that's how she defines herself, is being Finnish. The holidays are still celebrated in Finnish ways with the decorations and things like that. She speaks in Finnish. We call her Mumu because it's an important part of who she is. Her nationality is very important to her self-concept. There are others that it just doesn't matter. I think this can also work with states. For example, the relevance of where you were born. Are you proud of the state that you were from, or not so much? So that's the second part of cultural teachings. So the first one was your definition of success. The second one is the relevance of religion, race, and nationality. Now, to talk more about religion, race, and nationality, we're going to dive more into diversity, which is what we will talk about next time.